Today we live in a world 3 generations removed from survivors, but yet the Holocaust is still a huge part of our lives and our learning. We are living in a challenging world, maybe different in some ways from those living during the time of the Holocaust, but the decisions we face may not actually be so different. We are constantly told to step up to make a change because we are the next generation and responsible for solving problems in the world. We have learned this is hard without knowing what to change and why. The Holocaust has helped us find our place on this planet. As Jewish middle school students in Santa Monica, California, we spent the last year learning about the Holocaust and think that it has the power to help other people our age understand what it means to speak up and not be a bystander. The Holocaust is proof of what happens when hate convinces people to not do anything in situations of injustice, but also teaches us about the power of hope. The Holocaust shows many different types of responses to the same question and impacted so many different people, not only Jews. Studying the stories of those living during the Holocaust, we found that many stories centered around hate and targeting others for their differences. We want people to embrace others' differences and not use them against each other for hate. The Hebrew language revolves around roots, and the roots of the word hate and differences are the same. When someone's differences are put into the spotlight or out in the open, it is easy for people to hate that person or judge them. Just because someone is not exactly like you, this does not mean that they are going to hurt you. No group is perfect. Just because one person is one way does not mean that everyone of their religion, race, sexuality, gender, or ethnicity is like that. This is called scapegoating.
Our goal is to educate our generation so that the Holocaust will never happen again, and we can understand how to stand up for ourselves and others. We want you, at the end of this video, to be able to respond to the hatred and stand up to it. Now think about what you know about the Holocaust and what you have learned.
And remember to never stop asking questions because they always count, so always keep them in mind.
Questions allow us to think about ways to make a difference.
In 1933, Adolf Hitler rose to power because the German people wanted change after losing the First World War. When Hitler applied to art school and was rejected, he blamed the Jews, which started him on his path towards hating anyone who was not of the Aryan race. According to Hitler and the Nazis, the Aryan person was a white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Christian, straight person, was not a twin, and did not have a physical or mental disability. The policies that Hitler created were against anyone that did not identify this way. These policies led to a culture of hate where people were turning in on their neighbors and watching as the people they knew were sent to concentration camps. Hitler ironically did not fit his own description. Still, these policies led to the death of 11 million innocent people as a result of pure hatred. 6 million of those people were Jews, and 5 million in one way or another did not fit the Aryan race. We can never fully understand the challenges or the experiences of those who lived during the Holocaust, but hearing and sharing the stories of people affected during the time of the Holocaust helped us to keep their memory alive and help us understand what their lives were like. Here are some stories.
I am a twin. Eva and Miriam Kor were born twins in Romania in 1934. At the age of 10, their family was taken to Auschwitz. Their father and older sister were separated immediately. They were taken from their mother for lab tests just a little bit later. The twins did not get a chance to say goodbye. As Eva says later, "That's where they took away the joy of my life and my family." The twins were tested on, and they were of the 200 pairs that survived Auschwitz. Eva says she forgives the Nazis.
The lady living during the time of the Nazis was 4 feet and 1.5 inches tall. She was half an inch off from getting killed by the Nazis. The Nazis killed short people and called them unwertes Leben, or unworthy life. She was too short to live according to the Nazis and was sent to the concentration camps.
Regina Prudnikova lived in Lithuania at the time of the Holocaust. For a while, she worked for a Jewish family until she was scared away. Once the Jews were deported, she recalls, her people took everything from Jewish stores. She herself remembered taking a pair of shoes from her cousin's mother-in-law's house, who had just gotten them from a Jewish store. The woman tracked her down, and she had to give them back.
I am
Bolsa Brodicki. I was born on March 3rd, 1921, in Warsaw, Poland. I was raised by an accountant and a mother, but my mom died when I was 8. My aunt moved in to help us raise me and my sister. The Germans attacked Warsaw on September 9th, 1939. The bombing was relentless. My father wouldn't leave his ill relatives, but my sister and I decided to escape. Crowds separated us from Papa at the station. We didn't get to say goodbye before boarding a train for the Soviet border. Arriving at a little village on the Polish side, we paid a man to lead us by foot through the forests to the Soviet side. By the winter of 1942, I was in a labor camp. I fell so ill with typhus that I couldn't eat. I promised my bread ration to another prisoner, so he'd prop me up during roll call. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. I tied a belt to an upper bunk and put the other end around my neck and jumped. And the next thing I remembered, I was lying on the floor of the barracks. The other prisoner was trying to relieve me, hurrying, "You'll miss today's bread rations." I was liberated by the Soviets in Czechoslovakia. After several years in a displaced persons camp, I immigrated to the United States in 1949.
Jacob Blinkney. Our life in the camp started at 5 o'clock in the morning when they gave us coffee and a piece of bread. At the same time, we were counted like animals, making sure that no one was missing. We were beaten and abused constantly, especially if someone unfortunately fell or moved in place because of the hard beatings. These beatings were executed at that immediate instant, making the vile SS soldiers fill with laughter to see in our faces the horror to which we were subjected. We worked outside the camp until 7 o'clock at night when we returned, and they gave us a plate that contained a quarter of a liter of soup. Luckily, I was in the same barracks as my father. One of our first projects was to start digging water canals. Each evening, we brought back to camp 4 or 5 cadavers of our friends who were taken directly to the crematoria. Constantly, there were new selections. The sick were directly killed as we became increasingly more like skeletons.
Marion Cowlery. I don't know if anyone told my mother what the Germans were planning or if it was just her woman's intuition, but she moved to the area on site around the 17th or 18th of July 1942. As before, I was left to be alone at home with food supplies for several days. Unexpectedly, on July 20th or 21st, early in the morning, I heard knocking at the door. When I opened it, I saw a messenger from the court in full uniform with the official hat. He handed me a summons to testify in court, saying with a sly smile, "Listen, get ready, be quick. They are waiting for you in the court." Together, we went to the courthouse across the street. Inside, the security guard, previously bribed, approached me immediately. I followed him as we went through an endless labyrinth of corridors, passing many people who were so preoccupied with their own matters they didn't pay any attention to us. When we reached our destination, the security guard had taken me to the area on side. My stepfather was waiting for me. He bought a hat and a visor which was too big for him, but it enabled him to enter the street on the area on side without any difficulty. Everyone in the court, the security guard, the clerks, and the police were bribed. They all had to know the summons was forged.
I didn't look impoverished, and I didn't have a typical Semitic appearance, but my black curly hair betrayed me. Just after we left the ghetto, I was taken to a nearby barber who shaved my head. It was called a zero haircut. The barber, a nice man, as I remember, smiled understandingly and started to work. Apparently, he knew what it was all about, and I wasn't his first client with a similar request. Soon after, we got a hair clipper, and my mother shaved my head every week. As I later learned, the court in Lesno district was closed for Jews the very next day, and the deportation started. I left just in the nick of time. After the haircut, I was taken by rickshaw to an empty apartment. I was told not to go close to the window. I stayed there a short time and was then taken to another apartment for one night. I was shocked by the pleasant and carefree atmosphere on the Aryan side. It was like another world. Life was going on normally. Two younger girls and an older woman who lived in the apartment were just returning from the movie house, discussing a film they had just seen. I stayed there one night, and then I went to the railroad station to join my father at the ghetto, about 16 miles from Warsaw. The conditions there were hard, but it was not too crowded at the Warsaw ghetto, and the hunger wasn't as bad. I didn't stay long, maybe 2 months or so. In September 1942, there was a rumor that the ghetto would be liquidated. My stepfather came to pick me up, and I left the ghetto.
Peter Constant, in the morning of July 6, 1942, and Frank came to say goodbye to us. The Franks were about to go into hiding in their secret annex. It was a sad and difficult parting for everyone. As things had deteriorated, Anne had come down every day to play with Peter, age 6, Ruth, Peter's mother, age 31, and Clara, Ruth's mother, Peter's grandmother, had become very fond of her. We hugged and kissed each other goodbye, remembering that moment. That moment still brings me tears. We watched from our living room window as the Franks left for the hiding place. It was raining outside. Margot had gone ahead earlier. Otto was dressed rather formally, as if he were going to work. He wore a dark suit and tie, an overcoat, and a hat. He was carrying a satchel under one arm and holding on to Edith with the other. Edith was also wearing a hat and carried a shopping bag. Anna had put a scarf against the rain. She looked back one more time as we waved goodbye to them. We were crying and praying for their safety.
Sofka Skipwith. A Russian princess was arrested while living in France with her 2 sons and husband. In June 1940, she was sent to a civilian internee camp. She met Jews who had forged Latin American passports and was deeply moved. She snuck a list of these Jews into a toothpaste bottle that was sent to the French government so these people would not be deported. Now there is a minute of silence.
Something that has probably crossed your mind is, why should this matter? Why am I learning about an event that happened 80 years ago and does not affect me? Why should we care? Isn't it easier to just ignore it and continue living our lives?
Simply put, the answer is we cannot ignore this or any other hatred taking place. We must learn about this so that something like it does not happen again. There are still so many people who spread hate every day against people who they believe are different. Imagine what we could do if we all band together against hate and injustice. We need to make sure this type of hate does not continue to happen to anyone again. Jewish people, Muslim people, the LGBTQIA+ community, Black people, white people, and women alike.
In conclusion, we want you to take away a lesson. Do everything in your power to prevent discrimination or murder on any scale of any group. The time for you to help is now, whether you go out and find a way to help or it comes to you.
Together we must make never again a reality.